It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the prison service in crisis. As it emerges that some prisoners released early haven't been fitted with electronic tags, we have an exclusive insight for you into what life is really like inside.
For a lot of prisoners, the propensity to use or to carry weapons, it far exceeds today anything that I've ever known in my experience.
We've spoken anonymously to a serving prison governor at one of the country's overcrowded prisons, describing the squalid conditions in cells, constant violence, and the battle to keep drugs out. Tonight, we'll ask what can be done to fix a broken system. Also ahead, as the health watchdog finds half of England's maternity services are inadequate or need improvement, we'll be joined tonight by the former obs and gynae doctor and author Adam Kay. Plus, one of Britain's most prolific shoplifters is now banned from nearly every shop in the northeast of England. We'll speak to the shopkeepers who have lost tens of thousands of pounds to thieves within the last year. And
Henry VIII is the original Rizzler. His copies hits different.
the museum that is slaying their Gen Z makeover. We'll hear from that Rizzler. All to come and much more on the UK Tonight. Well, we've heard time and again about the crisis the prison service is facing. Just last week, more than 1,700 prisoners released early to try and relieve pressure as the country's jails come close to reaching capacity. And tonight, we have a rare insight into what's really going on inside. The serving prison governor that we spoke to is from one of the UK's most crowded jails. He has spoken to us anonymously here at Sky News about the reality of early release and why we should rethink who's being sent to jail. He was speaking to our correspondent Molly Malone, who has our first report this evening.
Prison is a place that's by definition behind bars. Out of public sight, unseen and unknown for most.
The number of, the level of incidents, the seriousness of incidents is undoubtedly on the increase.
From the outside, we've heard about the problems, but insight inside is rare. This is a governor who works in one of the country's crowded jails. We're keeping him anonymous to protect his identity.
Every day there will be staff who are daunted by what they will be faced with when they unlock.
Crowded conditions meaning inmates are kept behind their doors for almost 24 hours a day.
It just heightens frustration, and with that frustration becomes aggression, and with the aggression becomes violence.
Do you see prisoners taking advantage of the situation?
Yes, they do. What we call protesting behaviour has definitely increased.
And when things are tight, there's less time and space for the basics.
You've got people living there in one set of clothes for, quite a period of time.
2 weeks.
Can be as long as that, sometimes longer. I shouldn't say it really, but there is a smell that you would always associate with prison.
What's that like right now?
In some cases, it's the smell of unwashed bodies. Personal hygiene will always be a trigger for conflict amongst prisoners.
With conflict comes violence. Across the prison estate, prisoner-on-staff assaults rose by 24% in the last year.
We see violence every day. It's as simple as that.
Do you feel that the staff are properly equipped and experienced to be dealing with what faces them?
No, I don't think they are. For a lot of prisoners, the propensity to reach for, to use or to carry weapons, it far exceeds today anything that I've ever known in my experience. That weapon could be absolutely anything from a piece of broken furniture to a kettle full of boiling water, or a weapon fashioned out of a broken razor blade. I've witnessed the aftermath of both staff and prisoners being assaulted, being attacked with all of those things. It's very difficult.
Can you wholeheartedly say that staff are safe when they go into work?
No, I don't think that we could ever say that everybody is entirely safe.
Because of all of this, the government are releasing people early to free up space, but not without risk.
I think, irrespective of what stage of the sentence, there will always be people for whom who you fear will go on to reoffend. Are we doing the right thing by these individuals, or are we just setting them up to fail in order to make sure that we've just increased some prison spaces? Because if we've done it to increase prison spaces, then a large proportion of those we've released end up coming back, and then they haven't really achieved anything, have we?
From what you've seen, is there some sense of inevitability to that?
Yeah, it was quite disheartening, really. The attitude of some of those who have been released. There weren't many prisoners that I either spoke to or saw released that were talking about this as a golden opportunity for me to turn my life around. I do worry that we've pushed this through rather quickly. You've also got to factor into this that if some of these people do come back, it may not just be because they breached their licence. It's because they've actually committed further offences. And if they've committed further offences, then a large proportion of those cases, they will be further victims as well.
So is there an alternative? What should the future look like?
If we're going to be serious about reducing the prison population, I think we need to look at sentencing guidelines for certain offences. And I know that that's been quite topical recently, with one or two cases where we've seen people have gone to prison recently for, let's say, cyber-related offences, for comments on social media and things like that. I think prison needs to be for serious and organised crime, for violent offences.
Responding to this interview, the government said they inherited a prison system in crisis, putting pressure on the entire justice system and ultimately the public at risk. They said we're taking the difficult but necessary action to make sure we can keep locking up dangerous criminals and keep people safe. We thank all our staff for their hard work and will continue to drive improvements in our prisons to help more offenders turn their back on crime. Right now, the situation inside our prisons is immediate. It's likely that meaningful reform is some way off. A review of sentencing, prison spaces and the probation service could all be part of it. Molly Malone, Sky News.
Well, let's talk about Molly's report in a bit more detail. Former prison guard and author of The Prison Officer, Jen Glaister, joins me in the studio now. Jen, good to see you. You've watched Molly's report, and much of that you must recognise.
Absolutely, I do. I mean, this overcrowding emergency is not a new situation. In my 30 years of lifetime alone, we have seen the prison population double. These alarm bells have been sounding for a long time. Now, prison is a crowded place anyway. If you're a prisoner, you're expected to eat your dinner whilst crouched on your bunk bed, whilst your cellmate is an arm's length away from you using the toilet. So in terms of what overcrowding actually looks like in prisons today, they are crowded places. They are at capacity already, and prisoners are being forced to use cells which are out of use.
And the problems that stem from overcrowding, I mean, people watching this tonight will go, prisoners shouldn't be living in the lap of luxury. But what's being described here inside overcrowded prisons is absolute squalor. And what comes from that in terms of if you want to rehabilitate prisoners, I'm not sure that's creating the right environment for that. Is that a fair assessment?
Exactly. I mean, just a few months ago, Charlie Taylor, the Chief Inspector of Prisons, said that Wandsworth was not fit to house prisoners and that it should be shut down immediately, but there isn't capacity for it. Prisoners
so it's not fit for purpose, it's not habitable for human beings.
Exactly.
But they can't shut it down because there's nowhere else for those prisoners to go.
Prisoners are living in cells with blood and faeces and mould, and we expect them to then reintegrate back into society after being treated like that.
On the one hand, you would think those who have been released early would not want to end back there. But what that prison governor was telling Molly Malone was that from his first-hand experience of the prisoners that was released from his prison under this scheme, from what he was hearing them say, they didn't see it as a golden opportunity, to quote him, to turn their life around. He fully expected to see many of them back in there. So the big question is, and, you know, this is a big question the government are wrestling with, what can be done? Can this be fixed?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we as a country have lost sight of what the purpose of our prisons are. There are 4 overriding purposes, which are deterrent, incapacitation, rehabilitation and retribution. And prison is not performing under those items. It is not deterring people that go to prison. It might deter someone like you and I. It is not rehabilitating people, because sending someone to prison and expecting them to get better from criminality is like sending an addict to a crack house and expecting them to get clean.
Also, is there the resource there for those rehabilitation schemes and services for those prisoners? Because if you can't, afford to look after them properly on a basic level, are those kind of services actually there?
The resources are minimal and there is no longevity in it. They are so unsustainable and prisoners will be bounced from programme to programme to programme.
Sorry, I interrupted you there. So one was deterrent, one was rehabilitation, the others that are not being fulfilled as requirements?
Yeah, well, incapacitation, but we rarely give out whole life sentences in this country. So people are going to be released and they're likely to be released more vulnerable to committing crimes than they were when they went in.
What do you want to see happen, Jen? If we're going to get real about this situation, there is a new government. Yes, they've only been in for, a month or so. But if they were to look at this, as they should do perhaps, with fresh eyes and a blank sheet of paper, where do you start?
Well, like I said about people being immersed in a culture of criminality when they go to prison, it's impossible to make changes in your life. So I would like to see a system where every prison can offer an alternative route, a wing that is filled with people who are committed to making those changes in life, that has a therapeutic atmosphere where people learn to look after themselves and learn how to reintegrate back into society and to thrive back in society as well.
OK, Jen, really good to talk to you. Jen Glaser, there, former prison officer and author of The Prison Officer. Thank you for your time tonight, really appreciate it. And let's make some breaking news now on the post office scandal. Campaigner Sir Alan Bates has blamed government flim-flam artists, a direct quote, for dragging out compensation for the victims of this scandal. In a newsletter that's been seen by Sky News this evening, Alan Bates said this whole scheme has been and continues to be a gravy train for government's lawyers, seemingly to ensure maximum income for the lawyers and minimal settlement for the victims. I've come to the conclusion that the department is run by government-employed flim-flam artists whose only role is to drag out the GLOW scheme, GLO scheme, and probably the other schemes, and spin the narrative, then bury it in bureaucracy. Former sub-postmaster Christopher Head joins me now. When Sir Alan Bates talks, the nation listens. He's come out very strongly here. What have you made of what he's had to say?
He's absolutely right. Alan will tell you that he's gone through to the independent panel stage. He's actually progressed through, the initial offer stage, maybe rejecting it and receiving a second offer. And he's gone through the independent panel stage and he's no further forward. What we have to remember is, led by Sir Alan Bates, is that, we were exonerated in the High Court back in 2019. And the scheme was launched in 2022. And here we are in 2024. And we are not getting the full and fair settlements that the government has promised over and over again. My own claim has been in since June last year. And I've just had the decision from the independent panel early this evening tonight. And it is not doing, what they promised, which is to put you back in the position that we would have been in. It's just not happening. That's just the reality of what's going on the ground.
So sub-postmasters not being compensated. It's worth reminding viewers who have been following this story where you are at the moment in your fight for justice. Obviously, compensation is a massive part of that.
It's huge. I mean, obviously, as I said, people cannot start to move on with their lives and rebuild without the compensation that they promised to put them back in the position that they were. That is one part of it. The second part of it is accountability for those that have done what they've done. I mean, but these are two separate issues that we need a resolution on. And, we've seen in that output from the Department for Business's response saying that they are making offers within 40 working days. I've been contacted just right this evening from two people that were due their offers today. And they've been delayed because the disclosure from the post office, or they want more evidence. Well, why have they waited until the person is due to receive their offer before requesting additional information? Surely they would have known that when they first started to review the claim.
Yeah, I mean, that 40 days, within 40 days, the Department for Business said that was due to happen for 90% of claimants. I just want to bring you a response that we've had from the Department for Trade and Business this evening. It says it isn't acceptable that sub-postmasters feel they aren't being listened to or have their claims drawn out. Our ministers will continue to meet with those affected and work with them to get swift and fair redress paid. Since July, we've taken swift action to launch the new Horizon Convictions Redress Scheme and announced a new appeals process in the Horizon Shortfall Scheme in order to speed up payments further. We are making 90% of initial offers within 40 working days of receiving completed claims, and we encourage the 229 people who have not yet sent us complete claims to come forward as soon as possible to claim back what they are owed. What do you make of that?
Well, the 40 working days in that they're saying that they want to make it in 90% of cases. Actually, if you take away the £75,000 fixed sum awards that they've awarded to more than 150 people, which is more than 75% of the offers that have gone out so far, if you take them out of the equation, so the more complicated claims that are left, they haven't met the deadline of offers within 40 working days. And like I said, I got contacted by 2 people this morning. One person that was due to receive their offer today, and they've been asked on the 39th day, we need lots of additional information, we're not going to be able to make you an offer. So why have they waited until the offer was due when they've been reviewing it for the first 39 days? Surely they knew that information was missing. They are waiting right till the end and then saying we can't make that. So I think that figure that they put out there is pretty misleading, really.
How frustrated are you right now?
It's just annoying, I said, but I even met with the Minister Gareth Thomas actually just last week on these particular points. So I have one of the people that has met the minister, or the new minister. And the problem is we've been promised since 2019 that we'll put this right. The scheme was launched in 2022, and here we are in 2024, and we're seeing the offers that are going out the door. And it is not the full and fair compensation that has been promised to put the postmasters back in the position they would have been in had the scandal not happened to them in the first place. So I'm not sure where we go next.
Do you have any more faith in this new government than you did the last to sort this out?
Well, I mean, they have been in for a very, very short period of time. But the signs are, the early signs are that there is absolutely no difference than what we had with the previous government. It's the department itself, which obviously doesn't change as such, other than the ministers that are there. And we're having exactly the same problems as we had before. And I'm not sure what the next stage of this mess is going to be, really.
Well, look, Chris, keep in touch. We will keep highlighting this story on Sky News, and we will speak again soon. I am sure that is former sub-postmaster Christopher Head highlighting the problems that former sub-postmasters are having in claiming some kind of financial redress from the post office scandal. We'll continue to follow that story here on Sky News, of course. Now, urgent action is needed to improve NHS maternity services. That is the warning from the healthcare watchdog this evening. The CQC, the Care Quality Commission, has found nearly half, 48% of maternity units in England are rated inadequate or requiring improvement. And the impact that is having on women and their babies can be devastating. Our health correspondent Ashish Joshi has this report.
Rhiannon's baby Kate was just 6 hours old when she died. Another catastrophic failing in a broken maternity system.
I had no awareness of what was going on. The midwife sent me for a bath and placed Kate in a cold cot as opposed to a heated cot, and she left her alone in a side room because she panicked.
Rhiannon was then separated from Kate, mother and newborn ending up at different hospitals.
I was reunited with Kate after she died.
Baby Kate's death was one of hundreds investigated in the Shrewsbury maternity scandal. Now, 15 years later, health watchdog the CQC has found women and babies are still not safe from harm. Of the 131 units it inspected, almost half needed improvement. It found beds soaked in blood and staff abusing patients. And that's what makes all of this so totally unacceptable. A series of high-profile investigations led to a raft of recommendations presented to successive health secretaries here at the Department of Health. But here we are again. It's clear that no action was taken, and mothers and babies are still at risk of serious harm. The new government says it will provide extra staffing and resources, but equally important is to challenge the culture within midwifery.
We want our members to say, I can't deliver safe care, I don't believe the culture is good for the women in my care, and be able to tell people that it's not right and something needs to be done about it.
Joy Clark is a retired midwife with 44 years of experience. She's seen firsthand the racism and discrimination also flagged by the CQC.
We are working in an environment where research-based evidence is sometimes used, but not all research suits the ethnic minority women. They're different, we are different, and our symptoms and signs may be different.
Is it just cultural ignorance or is it racism?
Some racism is there too.
Nothing can ease the pain of grieving mothers like Rhiannon, but changes to the country's maternity services must be made straight away, or other families will be torn apart. Ashish Joshi, Sky News.
Well, senior midwife and author Marie-Louise joins me now. And Marie, thank you so much for coming onto the programme to talk about this. Another really difficult day for those trying to provide maternity care and those who are watching this who have received it or are about to receive it. I just wonder what you think about yet another damning report into this area of the NHS.
Yeah, exactly. Sadly, it is nothing new. We've had several reports over the past several years, including the Ockenden report, the Saving Babies' Lives, and also the birth trauma inquiry. So as you say, yet another report. Unfortunately, this is not new news. We've known for many years that NHS is understaffed, is underfunded, and we need to take better care of our midwives. And some of the stories that I've read and the individual experiences are absolutely not acceptable. The problem that I think that we have as well alongside this is the demonisation of clinicians that are on the ground working, doing their very best.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? There seems to be, when you read these reports, a disconnect between those who are trying to provide the care. I mean, people go to work in the NHS to care for people, regardless of what department they work in there. But there seems to be a disconnect between those who are offering that care and those who are receiving it when it comes to maternity care. I mean, you hear some of the stories from mothers about the way they are treated. But I'd be interested to hear from your point of view, you know, mothers talking about a lack of kindness, the care and the human element goes out of it. But I wonder what it's like on the other side when you are in a desperate situation, as you said, under-resourced, perhaps knowing you can't provide the safest of care. It'd be interesting to hear it from your side of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with chronic staffing issues, this is a vicious cycle in many ways, because you might have a really difficult time at work and you aren't offered the support that you perhaps need as a midwife and that proper debrief that you need. And sometimes you have to go to sleep in the day, get up, and then you have to go back to work. And I think we have got some sort of compassion fatigue, those midwives that are really pushed right to their very limits. And the vast majority of midwives go into the profession because they are very caring. They want to provide gold standard care. But unfortunately, when you exhaust an entire profession, when you don't fund an entire profession, then that's when you're going to have that compassion fatigue. That's when you're going to see members of staff being utterly burnt out. We should not be in this situation. Midwifery is a very unique skill set. Midwifery-led care leads to better outcomes. There's so much research that demonstrates that. It reduces, for example, preterm babies. It even reduces stillbirth. It improves women's experiences. It reduces cesarean sections. So I think it's really important that we're clear on the benefits of things like midwifery-led care, and that we don't kind of move away from that and blame individuals for these kinds of absolute tragedies that unfortunately are occurring in our country.
Yeah, we hear about so many tragedies, so many scandals. You know, we spoke about the number of the reports that have been done just recently into this area. When is it enough of reports and time for actions? You know, these reports have recommendations that, you know, it might have happened in one area of the country, but they should be adopted nationally. Yet it's very slow and they don't seem to come about.
They don't seem to come about. And unfortunately, I wish I had a specific answer for that, but I don't. They don't seem to come about. And it's extremely disappointing for midwives like myself who want to do better, who want to provide that gold standard care. But unfortunately, sometimes the certain situations and lack of funding do not enable you to do so. I think you touched straight away on a really important issue, and that's something I definitely want to address, is that any pregnant women that are approaching birth, this can be particularly scary to read. And I think it's really important that we also identify the fact that lots of women do receive very positive care. I had a baby myself this time last year. I had exceptional care. It is out there. So I don't want it to come across as being all doom and gloom. The other thing is to remember as well, if you're expecting a baby and you're feeling fearful of this, there's lots that you can do to support yourself. For example, there are a range of incredible resources online that are credible. There's Dr. Sarah Wickham. She's got some amazing books out. Dr. Rachel Reed, Tommy's charity website. There is a lot of information that is at your fingertips for you to really educate yourself and really get to understand your body and what to expect. So when there are limited resources or appointments are perhaps cut short, you do have that opportunity to properly educate yourself so that you're going into your birth feeling confident.
Yeah, and able to advocate for yourself and your baby as well. And Marie-Louise, good to end on a really positive note there. Thank you so much for your time, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Still to come here on the UK tonight, one of the country's most prolific shoplifters has been banned from pretty much every store across the northeast of England. We'll talk about the rise of shoplifting. Also ahead, inspiring the next generation of medics. I'll speak to the former doctor and comedian Adam Kay about his new children's book. Plus,
The Lion Armour is serving main character energy. Pop off, Queen.
the Royal Armouries Museum in Leeds slays over their Gen Z makeover. I'll be speaking to the star of this viral video sensation.
I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent.
An enormous explosion that's just come down. I think it was a monster just landed in between us. Hundreds and hundreds of people hoping to get north, ultimately to get to the United States.
It's a border where they're not welcome, yet they keep coming.
We saw snatch squads going in, grabbing people, taking them out and putting them into trucks, but taking them away.
They make about 50 kilos of fentanyl a week. It's incredibly dangerous and toxic stuff.
We're seeing an upsurge in deaths. The fighting between the gangs is getting more and more vicious.
Is this now all your territory?
Yeah.
The battlefield is outside the barricades, which is over there. This is much more like a normal town. It's really sending a clear message that Venezuela is eager for change. We're being crushed.
Free from wherever you get your news.
We are in the middle of a forest, in a jungle really, and they're attempting to keep these men alive. This is real, hardcore emergency medicine.
The information on this could bring down the entire network, not just in Iraq and Syria, but across the world.
Sky News, the full story first.
Well, hundreds of thousands of people have been using the beast for years to traverse Mexico, but it is really dangerous. Many people have died riding it.
This conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
A prolific shoplifter who has racked up 171 convictions has now been banned from entering all but 3 stores across the northeast of England. 43-year-old Tanya Liddell has been arrested almost 400 times by Northumbria police, often while wearing disguises to try and avoid being recognised. Well, she is an extreme example, but it is part of a wider problem many are seeing up and down the country. Her last name was Liddell, but it is spelt differently. Let's bring in Vince and Fiona Malone, who join me now. They own a convenience store and post office in Tenby and have lost £26,000 through shoplifting in the last year alone. Thank you so much for joining me. Talk to me about the scale of the problem. That is a lot of money to lose in a year.
An amazing amount of money. You know, £26,000 it's averaging out about £500 a week. It's more than the amount of money that we'd pay for a member of staff for the year, and it's really put us under a lot of pressure. It's you know, we're seeing it here, but we're seeing it across the whole country as well. I've just come back from our federation, the National Federation of Retail News Agents. We've had our meeting, and it's top of our agenda, retail crime, and it's something that is really impacting us as a small business.
Yeah, and impacting you sort of emotionally and mentally, I would imagine, as well, Fiona, because you're not a big supermarket. You are a community-based convenience store. You're a small business. Presumably, when there's a shoplifter and a crime's being committed, you go to the police. What help do you get?
Yeah, we do go to the police and we report all shoplifting incidents. But unfortunately, what we tend to find is we end up chasing the police. At the moment, we've currently got 5 outstanding cases where we've got clear evidence and we've given the police names of the shoplifters. So it's very frustrating for us. I work with the Association of Convenience Stores, and all of our colleagues across the UK are having similar issues. So far, we've decided to employ some modern technology. So we've got AI headsets. So therefore, if anyone makes a suspicious gesture in the shop, it pings up a video on my phone. I can then assess it. And obviously then hopefully we can then decide what to do and make it appropriate.
What do you do in that case? Because shoplifting in stores is on the rise, but so is violence against those that work in shops as well. Effectively, you're having to confront criminals. What's that like, and how safe do you feel doing it?
I mean, I think, from our point of view, we've got to look after our safety. We've got to look after our team's safety here, and that's number one to us. It's bad enough we're losing £26,000, but what we don't want to do is add injury to insult, and it's a case of us having to judge these circumstances and try and make sure that we act appropriately. But we need to make sure that we make a stand, because it is our money. We're a small shop. We've got a post office, and we can't afford to close, because if the post office closes, then the town's in a real mess.
Yeah, convenience stores, pubs, post offices, all part of the community that need to be protected, and those 3 things are suffering. In terms of not getting much help from the police, having to make a judgment on whether you confront people, because we've all seen these viral videos online of people blatantly going into shops, taking stuff from the shelves and just walking out because they know they won't be confronted, because they act in an aggressive, brazen manner. But what can be done? Because a lot of people are saying, shoplifting is essentially being legalised by the back door.
Yeah, I mean, what we're tending to find is that it's just becoming normalised, and people are saying, oh, it's only a 67p bar of chocolate, but actually all of those things add up. What we need to bear in mind is that shoplifting has a huge impact on our whole community. We want to live in a safe community. Now, we would always say to our staff, don't tackle anybody, because it's not worth it. I'm quite happy to tackle someone, and Vince will tackle someone. But, obviously we do then do it in our own risk.
Well, Good on you, Fiona. You're a braver woman than I am. You know, I'm sure you and Vince make a formidable duo in tackling these people, but look after yourselves. Thank you for coming on to highlight the scale of the problem, because as you said, this is happening in small retailers across the UK right now, and you're getting very little support. So thank you for talking to us, Vince and Fiona Malone there from Tenby in Wales. Still to come on the programme tonight, I'm going to speak to author and comedian Adam Kay about his new children's book that hopes to demystify medicine for younger readers. Now, we had the Prime Minister say only a week ago that the NHS must reform or die. This was after a damning report found the service was in serious trouble. And earlier on in the programme, we heard about the widespread failings in maternity services across the country. So with such a bleak outlook for the health service, how do you inspire the next generations of medics in the hope of improving the NHS? Well, joining me now, former doctor turned author and comedian Adam Kay. He's written a new book for children aimed at doing just that. I mean, that's quite a lot of pressure to put on your shoulders, isn't it? To inspire the next generation of medics. If anyone can do it, you can do it. Can we talk about some of the grown-up stuff, first of all? Yeah. Because we started the show today talking about this new maternity report that's out from the Care Quality Commission. The headline being basically, there's a real risk of harm being normalised in maternity care. Now, you were a doctor specialising in obstetrics and gynaecology, and it was, in fact, a particularly harrowing experience during a baby delivery that led you to quit the NHS. What did you make on hearing today's report?
It's shocking and unacceptable, but also unsurprising, I think, to people who know the system, who've worked on labour wards. So, you know, the diaries I published that became the TV show that was This Is Gonna Hurt, those were the good old days, in a way, even though I don't think I paint a particularly relaxing picture of it. You know, it was a very tough working environment. I left in 2010, and since then things have got tougher and tougher and tougher, more and more stretched, and worse for patients, and it's mums and babies who've been suffering. And I think whilst it's extremely sobering, it's really important that there's a light shed on it, because it's absolutely imperative that things change.
Is it frustrating for you that you left so long ago? In fact, you were working as a doctor under the last Labour government. A lot of time has passed since then. Is it frustrating? Does it make you angry that, you know, mothers and babies are still being provided with this substandard level of care?
It makes me angry, it makes me sad, it makes me worried. It's deeply disappointing. Things have got far worse than I experienced when I was working on the wards, and hopefully this is the wake-up call that, you know, allows for change.
Yeah, I mean, you've become an unofficial spokesperson for the NHS workforce, really, in the fact that you speak so openly and honestly about what it's like on that front line. You have spoken to previous health secretaries. Have you spoken to the new one, West Streeting, yet?
No, it's in train, but I haven't sat down with him yet, but I really hope to. And there's an awful lot to say, but I think the critical thing, if the NHS is going to survive, to be honest, is stemming the flow of staff who are leaving. And this was highlighted in the report as, you know, staffing was one of the main things mentioned.
So would your message be treat doctors, nurses, people working in the NHS better?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it boils down to. There's been a lot of chat about the pay, but that's only, I think, a small fraction of treating people well and making sure there's enough of them. You know, last year, 3 times as many doctors quit their roles in the NHS as retired. You know, we can't resolve this without stopping people leaving. We can't stop people leaving without improving the organisation.
Yeah, I mean, you know, stopping people leaving, people are leaving the NHS, you did. Some don't leave, they choose to take their own life. I know that you're involved with or you support the campaign Doctors in Distress.
Yeah.
And that's something that's not spoken about enough, I think, is the amount of NHS workers who take their own lives.
No, it's not spoken about, and I'm so grateful for you talking about it. I think it's a national scandal. Every 3 weeks, one doctor takes their life in the NHS. Every single week, one nurse takes their life in the NHS. And these numbers are a lot higher than in anywhere else, in any other profession. We need to work out what the NHS is doing wrong, what it can do better. It needs to take it seriously, because Doctors in Distress, a charity I work very closely with, believe that suicide is totally preventable in these cases, and we need to take it seriously, which involves the hospital bosses looking after their work. Acknowledging it in the first place, because you can't resolve a problem until you admit the problem exists.
OK. Well, Adam, thank you for talking to us about the big grown-up issues in the NHS, because they are big issues, and they are for the government and the big bosses to tackle, but I know you will be doing your bit when you get to meet the new health secretary. Can we lighten the mood and talk about Dexter Proctor, the 10-year-old doctor? Because I actually got my child's first report from reception today, and it said, Ray loves to play doctors. I was like, that is really handy, because I've got Adam Kay coming in.
And we need lots more doctors.
We need lots more doctors. Let's continue this. But that's the point. When children's imagination kicks in, being a doctor is one of the things they like to act out. And this book is aimed at 7 and above. What are they interested in when it comes to medicine? What sort of captures their imagination when it comes to working as a doctor or a nurse?
Well, I think my way in to this book to make people interested is we've got this super mega genius who's born talking, cuts his own umbilical cord, and has read all of the Wikipedia in 47 languages by the age of 3 months.
So he's off to a good start.
Good start. Smashes through school, gets into medical school because he sees something on the news about we need more doctors. And now we've got this 10-year-old working on the wards. And I thought, what a fun way to humanise the profession and show all sorts of exciting disgusting, to be honest.
The kids love the disgusting, don't they?
And leaning into, you know, helping people and what that involves in a funny, silly way, in the hope that some people will read that and think, you know what, I might want to do that. Or even more importantly, perhaps, people will read this as kids and be less worried about going to see a doctor, visiting someone in hospital, going to hospital themselves.
Yeah. And being encouraged to ask questions, because the book's entertaining, but it's also educational. I know you've called it education by stealth. So you will sort of use words for different types of antibiotics and then explain that it's antibiotics. So you're not frightened to use sort of the big terms in there.
Absolutely not.
So kids can be comfortable if they hear terms they don't understand. So they can ask questions, right?
Absolutely. I hated as a kid reading a book where someone was talking down to me. And so I hopefully get their interest by being funny and gross. But also, so I've written the book, and then Dexter, this main character, has annotated in the margins and at the bottom with various extra bits of medical information, so that, you know, there's just bits here and there, but by the time you've read all 400 of them, that's a lot of information. He also annotates quite a lot that he's unhappy with my style of writing, and he'd much rather Philip Pullman did it instead.
I love that, a review within your book. It's one of those things where you always imagine sort of one of the traditional scenes at a hospital as a child with a pot stuck on the head, and you've got an illustration there of a gentleman with a toilet seat stuck on his head. And
it's the first patient he meets.
I've got a picture of my daughter with one of those stuck on her head, so, you know, there was a lot going on that I could identify with. I could indeed. Well, Adam, been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for tackling the serious and the light-hearted. I really appreciate it. Adam Kay, a comedian and author and doctor, because you never stop being a doctor, do you?
Well, I'm a doctor if I'm trying to get upgraded on a plane, which never works.
I like your style. Adam Kay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, if you have been affected by anything I was discussing with Adam in the early part of our conversation, the Samaritans are there to help. The number is 116123, or you can email them, joe@samaritans.org. Well, still to come on the UK Tonight.
Negative aura points if you miss the gift shop. Our tote bags understood the assignment.
The Royal Armouries get rears. We'll tell you what on earth that means after the break. And England are well beaten by Australia on the first one-day international of 5. Reaction to that coming up next.
I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's chief North of England correspondent. I've reported from around the world and around the UK.
I'm Mark Stone, I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C. And beyond the United States, from across the world, I report on the biggest stories.
I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I remember some of the worst of the violence here.
I'm Alex Crawford, and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
In politics is at an all-time low. What's going wrong and can we fix it? It's from Liz. She wants to know, why is there still no sign of the Labour Party electing a woman as leader?
It's sort of embarrassing. You know, it takes a very strong man to be leader, but it takes an even stronger man to support a woman for leader.
If you want to be mean to politicians, like, crack on. The activists that go out and make elections happen, I kind of feel like just don't be horrible to them. Be polite to them in the same way that they're polite to you.
Keir Starmer has got us into government with a big majority. He was completely clear before the election that he wasn't going to be able to do the two-child benefit policy, but I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't an early thing that comes along.
I went up to Gordon Brown and said, hello? No, yes, what is it? I said, found all these Tory candidates breaking land. Let me see it, let me see it. This is brilliant, brilliant.
Either way, he's a
Boris Johnson, just for the record, would say he's not a
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes. Cheers.
We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.
Hello, welcome back. Coming up, the Leeds Museum that's been given a Gen Z makeover. No cap. No idea. But first, Dave is here with the sport. Do you know what no cap means?
I don't, in this instance.
I'm just now saying things I don't
Just
understand.
say what you see. Anchor woman.
Yeah, say what you see. I know, yeah, I'm in danger of that at the end of the show. Right, let's talk cricket, shall we?
Yes.
We're on safer ground with that. The first one-day international between England and Australia finished. How did it play out?
Yeah, we got smoked by Australia in short. It was bizarrely the first one-day international of the summer, September the 19th. They prioritised T20s earlier in the summer because of the T20 World Cup. There were then 3 tests against Sri Lanka, 3 tests against the West Indies, and we got, properly beaten by Australia. Travis Head, that man there, celebrating in bizarre fashion, 154 not out, best T20 player in the world. He was absolutely fantastic against us. We got 315, it wasn't enough. We got strangled by their spinners, and then Head and Marnus Labuschagne just knocked off. So, not ideal, but,
Well, a little bit of good news. We did see the return of one of England's bowlers after a pretty long absence, didn't we? So let's, concentrate on the positive.
Concentrate on Jofra Archer, yeah. I mean, great to see him back. Everyone remembers him from 2019, the World Cup, the Super Over, the Ashes. He's been plagued by injuries since. He has played quite a few. He's played 11 T20s this summer, but this was his first game back in a longer format game, albeit a one-day game, for the first time since March 2023. He got whacked everywhere as well. 6 overs, none for 53, but good to have him back. So that was that. And then coming up, they've got 5 one-day internationals. Go to Headingley on Saturday, then Durham, then Lords, then Bristol. Hopefully we can bounce back. So that's the cricket coming up in the sport. We'll tell you about Arsenal and the Champions League.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
We were both so excited to see each other as these little characters in a kid's book. It was brilliant, and we spent a lot of time laughing about doing it. The book is 2 young lads, Kevin and Rob, exploring what heroes mean to them, and to have something that's physical that we completed together, and for it to be the last thing we did, which is such a positive thing as well, is great. And I know little Jackson Burrow, who's 5, has had this book read to him about 100 times and loves it.
Can you try and elaborate a little bit on your relationship and why that bond was so special?
We sat next to each other for 15 years in dressing rooms. Rob was maybe 18 and I was 20, and both trying to make our way. Probably 300 days a year we sat in that dressing room and we chatted of some sort every day, albeit very, very different with Rob because he's crackers and he was crackers.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Now, we always like to leave you with something that slays at the end of the programme and pops off here on the UK Tonight. The Royal Armouries has got Riz and has been called Leeds' most Sigma day out, no cap. Let's translate that for you. A museum in Leeds has gone viral after having a Gen Z makeover. The video of curator Mark Murray Flutter has got more than 4.5 million views on TikTok alone, which is where Gen Z lives. Let's take a look.
Brat summer is over, bestie. It's time to enter your historical era. The Royal Armouries is the most Sigma day out in Leeds. No cap. Slay. Small. The line armour is serving main character energy. Pop off, Queen. Henry VIII is the original Rizzler. His codpiece hits different. This is the largest display of arms and armour since the 19th century. Very based. Chat, this diorama is sending me.
Well, I caught up with the Rizzler himself, Mark Murray Flutter, a little earlier and asked him why the museum wanted to do this.
I was asked by my communications officer, Katie, if I would be like to be involved with this, and I just thought that it would be a fun thing to do. As from another generation, it's nice to be able to talk to a younger generation.
It certainly
Using
is.
their
Well
language.
done. Yeah, well done to you and Katie, having to learn a whole new language. Did you learn it, though? Did you understand what you were saying at the time?
Some of it, yes, because I have to admit I cheated in that Katie kindly provided me with a dictionary, which I began to memorise and learn about. But it's the context in which these words are used which is the fun bit.
Yeah, Mark, don't worry, we've all been there. We've all crammed different languages, haven't we, ready for tests. Yours was on camera. As I said, it's gone down really well. What kind of reaction have you had?
I have to say I was surprised on the Monday morning when I woke up and discovered that all this had happened. But from what I've been told, I'm not on TikTok myself, but those who have reported to me that the reaction has been incredibly positive and very complimentary, which has been I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, positive, complimentary, and you know, we're having a bit of fun with this. You're having a bit of fun with this, but there's a serious message behind it. You want people to come and visit you there at the museum. You want the next generation to be engaged in what you're doing, because I know you're so passionate about the exhibitions you've curated there. Tell us a bit about it. What can Gen Z expect when they come through the doors?
Well, hopefully Gen Z will find the collection appealing, that they'll find things they've never seen before, and hopefully they'll become excited by the material, which I'm excited and passionate about. And indeed, all the people who work here are passionate about as well. So yes, we would hope that you've got to come and see it, otherwise you don't know what you're missing.
Yeah, you've got to see it to believe it. Gen Z, Gen Z, let's call the whole thing off. We're all learning this new language, aren't we? Trying to connect with Gen Z. What was your favourite term that you've come across?
Oh, I have two favourite terms. One which I am currently using, which is slay. I like
Very
that. That's a really
given the
nice
armoury
phrase.
that you display.
Yes, but the other one I'm quite fond of is pop off, Queen.
I've got no idea what that means, but it sounds like it's something I might like to say. What does that mean?
It means everything's brilliant. It's a really good thing. It's amazing.
Do you know what? I'm going to use that about this interview. If you are to make the visit to see you there at the museum, what is the one exhibit that slays, the one that slays above all others?
Well, there are two, actually, I would recommend. One, of course, is you have to see Henry VIII, the Rizzler, as he is, his armours. We have two of them here at the moment. But the other one is probably the most amazing elephant armour, which is we filmed this morning, funnily enough. So those are the two I think people would find really exciting and different and something which they would really enjoy seeing.
That man really has got Riz. Well, that's all from the UK tonight. You can catch up on all the highlights on our webpage. You can scan the QR code on your screen. We, of course, have our highlights programme over the weekend as well. A look back at the best of the interviews from this week. We are covering, of course, the main story from the beginning of the week, Hugh Edwards given a 6-month suspended sentence. So we're also talking about the woman, slight change of tack here, the woman who was given a £500 fine for trying to recycle some furniture. All that and more on the highlights over the weekend. But up next, it's The World with Yalda Hakim, live from Beirut tonight.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.